So my guest today is Emma Jones Phillips. She is a naturopath and the founder and director of School of Naturopathy Nutrition, which is where I studied. And Emma has totally influenced my health. So thank you for joining me, Emma.
Thank you, Tina. Nice to see you.
Right, so as you know, this started from my post on Facebook about my own health and how I became to take back my own power. So Emma's got an amazing story of how she took back her own power. So do you want to share that with us?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so my naturopathic journey actually started with me becoming quite ill myself in 1994. And at that time, I had done teacher training. And what the ideal thing would have been to go out and start my career. But I actually had a combination of symptoms at the time that medics didn't have any answers for. I was very allergic, so I used to have extreme sensitivity to allergens and intolerances, to the point where I would faint out in public, allergic to people's perfumes and sensitivities, environmental sensitivities, etc. And the symptoms were quite horrendous, where I was bedridden with fatigue. I lost a lot of weight. And it was at that point I realised that my life had completely collapsed. The point of change came when I was sat with one of the top consultants at the Chronic Fatigue Clinic of Wales, and he had, I think, about 7 students with him, and they all agreed that I had to basically live like this. That they had nothing they could offer me other than antidepressants or sleep drugs, because basically I could because I wasn't moving around, I wasn't sleeping at night, and of course anyone who doesn't go outdoors for 2 years, I actually became quite depressed. So that was the end of it for me, because at that point I felt this huge surge of energy to know that this wasn't the way my life was going to go. So I walked out of that consulting room that day, and then thought to myself, okay, I'm never going back to a medical practitioner ever again. And the start of that was actually natural medicine. So I started to practice yoga. I enrolled on every course I could possibly find on natural medicine that I could do from my own home. And eventually, by chance, I was given a card by a naturopath, and a consultancy card, and I made an appointment with her and made the journey to go and see her. And that was the major turning point for me, because I had realized that even though I was aware to a certain degree, but I didn't have the full story or the full understanding of what I needed to get well. At that point, I went organic with my lifestyle. I went vegan, I went plant-based, and I cleansed the body, but also rejuvenated it with some of the things I'd been chronically deficient in, vitamins and minerals, for example. And actually, I got completely well within 6 months. Now we're talking about a transformation that really people wouldn't recognize me previously, and it happened in a 6-month period. And from there, that set me on my journey to retrain as a naturopath, and just really this continuous journey that I've been on for the last 25 years, which is to constantly improve my health. So recently I've had 3 children in my 40s, and I've managed to breastfeed them, all, and stay very healthy, and run a college, and have a healthy life. And I could never have thought about that before, the way I was at in my 20s, and like I said, medics didn't have an answer for me, but I actually took, like you, Tina, I took back my power and thought, this is not what I meant to be here for. My life is bigger than this. And that was the drawing the line in the sand and moving into a new chapter. That once people start to make those changes in lifestyle and diet, that anything is possible.
Yeah.
And that, this is the message really to put out during this time where people feel hugely challenged. Often when we're most challenged is where we get our biggest gifts and biggest transformations. First, I was thinking over, what was the biggest change for me, all that time ago. because it's quite good to go back to the beginning, really, because often we forget how far we've come with this process. So my first tip is actually go organic and plant-based. I had been a vegetarian prior to getting ill, but I actually had not contemplated the chemicalization of food, how much pesticides and radiation on the food, and the way the energetics of the food before it comes to our plate, you know. So local food and organic food, and food that you know where it's come from and has come out of the ground. So, you know, encouraging the obvious, really, you know, of the fruits and vegetables in the diet. But we've often got into a place now, because of lifestyle and the processed food industry, even in veganism and plant-based nutrition, there's so much processed food. So people may have the processed protein and then have a small amount of vegetables with that, and those vegetables may not be of high quality. So the average vegetable that's non-organic has about 20% minerals and vitamins in it, and then compared to an organic vegetable which has 80% plus vitamins and minerals. So first tip is organic and plant-based, but unprocessed. That's a really important starting point. So get to know, talk to people who run allotments, go to your local greengrocer. Local food is better over travelled food. That's, even if it's organic, supermarket food has sat around a long time, therefore it loses its nutrients. So as much as we can, eat more raw food over cooked food. And that could be juicing, smoothies, but having, you know, the salad and the raw vegetables alongside what you're having cooked, but to encourage more raw food over cooked food in the diet. The raw food has the enzymes to heal the body. And when we eat cooked food, we use our own enzymes up in order to digest it. So we lose vitality if we just eat cooked food. And some people may, you know, just have the small salad alongside a meal. But what I'm talking about is, you know, using things like sweet potato and butternut squash, maybe spiraled. You can get lots of gadgets now which, you know, shed the vegetables so that they're more digestible. Things like raw kale that's been marinated. And so to be really diverse with the types of raw foods we're putting in, and think colour with that as well. And that really helps alkalinity. So when your body becomes alkaline, we lose a lot of the symptoms which have been bugging us for a while, you know, like chronic pain and discomfort within the muscles, etc. One meal a day, and then encouraging more raw food with each meal. Yeah, so what the aim really is to get more raw food in than cooked food in a day. So some, you know, for some people that would be 80-20, for others it would be 60-40, you know, so whatever feels good in that balance, build it up gradually. So that's tip 2. So we all know we need to drink water, and what we get from our tap isn't good enough. It's dead water. What we know is dead water. What I mean by that is the water not only has chemicals within it, you know, quite a lot of chemicals if you were to get your water analysed. It's not just chlorine and heavy metals. There's bacteria in water, and sometimes for certain areas of the world, especially cities, a high level of estrogen in the water, and even medications these days. So what we want is to filter the water, find a filter that feels right for you, and that will be within your price range. But the last stage of water is re-energizing it. So what we call vortexing. So if you can buy these vortex spirals simply online now, and you can get them on the end, put them on the end of your tap, or even having them in a funnel. So you're putting the water through a funnel in order to, with the spiraler within it. So it's like a vortex which charges the water. And the idea is it's actually mimicking spring water. So therefore it's coming through in an energized way into the body, and therefore it will energize you.
I think people take for granted the benefits of water.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's the first thing that I started doing when I first studied with you, And for the first month, I just upped my water.
Mm-hmm.
And I just saw a huge increase in my energy just from drinking filtered water.
Yeah. Oh, it's huge. And even myself now, after all this time of knowing about water, I woke up today, it's the full moon, isn't it? And sometimes the full moon can have a slowing down effect on the body. And I thought, I don't feel quite right today. You know, I feel a bit muzzy headed. Oh, hang on, I'm dehydrated. I had 2 liters of water before I put anything else in my body, and it was a complete change in energy. Everything cleared, I felt energized again. So there are points in the month where we need to have a lot more, you know, than usual if we're cleansing, or if there's something impacting us like a full moon. And for me, you know, usually I would have 1 pint of water, then have breakfast, like a smoothie or, you know, something energizing. But, you know, this morning I needed to do the 2 liters straight off to really bring myself back into an energized state. So it's a wonderful medicine. Yeah, so tip 4 is to include at least 3 superfoods daily, which you can rotate. You know, maybe you change this every season as we move into a new season. And these superfoods are readily available now in supermarkets and even organic versions. So some of the things that people might use would be spirulina, which is an algae, which is a complete food. It has everything in it to stay balanced, and it's got high protein and essential fatty acids. Also chlorella, that's another nice one. It's got the B12 in it. Chlorella powder, so very good for the brain and the blood system, so helping with absorption of iron and helps with the nervous system. I like maca as well. Maca is even available in places like Lidl's and Aldi's in an organic form, and it's a superfood for the hormones. So hormonal balance, you know, comes from maca, and it's really good for stress as well. So it's got the vitamin B5, which is pantothenic acid, and that's brilliant for the adrenals and stress. So those 3 are current ones that I'm using. But superfoods are, you know, all around us right now, you know, in supermarkets and health shops. And again, one of my other favorites would be cacao, so chocolate powder, or using the plant in cacao as a ceremonial sort of purposes. You drink it very bitter, and that's really energizing and very uplifting for the emotions. So how I use these superfoods daily, I'd put 1 in breakfast, so maybe some maca in a smoothie, and then lunchtime in soup or a dal, I might stir in a little bit of the green powder. You know, if you got like a pea soup, you wouldn't even notice. So a teaspoon of spirulina or a teaspoon of chlorella, or even much less. It doesn't have to even be a teaspoon. And then in a salad, you could throw in some goji berries, which is another superfood. It's very high in vitamin C. So, and even in a hummus, a homemade hummus, you could mix in so any of the sort of protein or greener powders that are out there, you know, which even a protein powder, like a vegan protein powder, which has got a plain base, you can add that to like a base for a hummus or a dip. So I always think about, okay, whatever I'm traditionally making, what can I add in that's going to add another dimension to this meal? Yeah, so I believe the last point had a huge impact on my journey in terms of returning back to health, and it's essential fatty acids. So the omega-3s and 6s, and we predominantly need more omega-3 in this climate, and generally for hormones and serotonin, so mood, and particularly the endocrine system. So omega-3 in a plant-based world would be things like chia porridge, chia seeds that have been soaked, or flax seeds which have been soaked at the sort of minimum of a tablespoon a day, and then hemp seeds made into milk, or using hemp oil. The hemp oil is fantastic for the skin. So for me, when I was starting out with my journey of healing, I used a lot of flaxseed oil, which is a high dose omega-3. I used hemp oil as well, and it was incredible for rebalancing the hormones and balancing the blood sugar. So it took me away from cravings for the processed fats, like fried food, cheese, processed chocolate, you know, those sort of things. And it was very stabilizing. So what those oils did, they helped with my thyroid, my adrenal glands, my pancreas. So the hormone system is actually 7 glands throughout the body, which produce, you know, hundreds of hormones. And if we are not taking essential fatty acids, we really crave all the wrong things, including alcohol and stimulants. So things like your coffee, alcohol, white sugar, processed products, you know, processed fats, you know, like fried food. If you don't put the fats in, we go down the route of all the wrong things. And so that, I think that's quite an important one for transformation. And I personally believe that I probably wouldn't have got as well as quickly without putting the essential fatty acids in, because it totally recovered my energy and my hormonal balance. Really, it was really a big change for me.
I think it's a really important one as well, because as you said that, you know, like you're gonna crave your cheese and your other like alcohol, other stimulants and stuff.
Yeah.
And you got these in place. But like a lot of people say, oh, I could never eat like you, I can't give up cheese. And I used to love cheese. I would sit and watch a film with a block of cheese and just eat it, and that's how much I loved it. But now, just like soaking like flax every night, I don't crave cheese at all.
Wow, yeah.
It's just knowing that if you do put in the fast, then you won't crave these things.
Absolutely. And all people say that, they say I can't give up that, but eventually when they start introducing the fats, it just goes away. The need for it goes away. And that involves meat as well. You know, if people are eating meat and they want to become a vegetarian or a vegan, if you put the essential fats in, the craving for meat goes down rapidly. And so it helps people with that transition.
So what's the importance of soaking your chia and your flax?
Yeah, so the importance of that is when you soak it, it releases the oil and helps with the hydration process. So otherwise it will, you probably have seen, Tina, if it's dry, how much water it takes up. It goes very gloopy. And it's the same with the flax seeds or linseeds and flax are the same thing. If you don't soak them, they can take water from your own body and they'll feel dry. Plus you won't access the omega-3s if you don't soak them.
Yeah. Awesome. Fab 5 tips. So can you just remind me what the 5 were?
Yeah. So organic, plant-based, non-processed food. That's tip number 1. Number 2 is raw food, which alkalizes, and that can be smoothies, juices, and getting the percentage of raw food up above cooked food. And 3 is vortex water, so energized water that's been charged positively so that you feel more energized from that. And 4th tip is bring in those superfoods. Choose 3 a day, maybe rotate them every season, and experiment with adding superfoods to your typical dishes of soups and things like blended pastes like hummus, that sort of thing, and even porridge and, you know, traditional sort of eating, but introduce the superfoods into that. And then lastly, essential fatty acids. So that's the omega-3s, predominantly your flaxseed, your hemp oil, your chia porridge and your flax seeds, to really help with cravings for the wrong fats, plus regulation of hormones and blood sugar.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Emma.
That's okay. Lovely speaking.
Hopefully people will listen to this and realize, okay, it's not going to be that hard. I can take it step by step and implement these ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take back your power, people. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you, Tina.